Welcome to the Forward Together webinar series, brought to you by the School of Management at California Lutheran University. The series is designed to bring interesting topics and people to our global community of students, alumni, and leaders in business and government to empower, educate, and inspire. Forward Together features experts from industry with the purpose to spark thought, connect people, and stimulate engaging discussions. Please submit your questions in the chat. We will hold a Q&A immediately following the presentation. Today's host is Gerhard Apfelthaler, Dean of the School of Management.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. We have a fantastic speaker at our Forward Together webinar series today, Ravi Sawhney, the founder and CEO of RKS Design, a major design firm that is located here in Southern California, but works for companies globally, works for startup companies and Fortune 500 companies alike. Ravi is a real visionary, has founded the firm about 40 years ago, and has been inducted into the Industrial Designers of America Society as a fellow. So without much further ado, Ravi, we look forward to hearing from you on design thinking pre and post COVID-19.
Thanks, Gerhard. Thanks for the great introduction and inviting me to speak today. I'm pleased to share my screen and start the presentation. So we have about 25 minutes today that I'll run through some slides that go through the process of psychoaesthetics as a design thinking methodology, the history of it, some of the insight into it, some of the thinking, and then we'll talk about COVID and how I see the world through our mapping system and such. So I'm the founder of RKS Design. I started the firm some 40 years ago, and today we're going to talk about my methodology, which is design thinking methodology in COVID-19. One of the underpinnings of the firm and the thinking is this statement, which I wrote in 1982, which is that it's not how you feel about the designer experience, it's how it makes you feel about yourself. This type of thinking came out of my work. Hold on a second. This kind of thinking came out of my work at Xerox. Oh, we're having a little technical issue here. Okay, we're back on. It came out of my thinking and work at Xerox in 1978 and 1979, which I was the sole designer working on the first touchscreen interface and working with human factor psychologists at that time. What I learned was that design is actually a tool to motivate people to experience new things in life, even things that are beneficial they might otherwise overlook. So out of the Xerox work, the touchscreen, which I never imagined would be ubiquitous throughout the world at that time, came quite a bit of insight and thinking, but of course being thrown into a think tank with 200 programmers and 30 psychologists was a great learning. Let's talk about the psychoaesthetic process. It uses both sides of the brain. It applies creative talent, which we all have. I don't think creative talent is limited just to people like designers and such.
Hi, Mr. Sawhney, can you press screen share for me?
Can everyone see my screen now?
Yeah. Could you just hit play at the top for me?
Okay. A little bit of a hiccup there. So everyone heard about the Xerox. Apologies for the technical issues. So I was just talking about how it uses both sides of the brain, and that creativity is really something that everyone has. And the process is really interesting because it transforms everyone who's involved into design thinkers. Some of the people that we leveraged the thinking of initially was Abraham Maslow, who said what is necessary to change a person is change their awareness of themselves. We started looking at Maslow's hierarchy and actually found that in today's world, it doesn't have relevance because people may be walking around with the world's greatest cell phone and the world's greatest coffee, and you may not know that they're living out of their car or that they've given up shelter or some of the other essentials of life. That got us to thinking about different ways to map and different ways to see the world. And I'm going to go into great depth into how that actually works. The other person we leveraged and thought about, or another person, is Joseph Campbell, who proclaimed, I don't believe people are looking for the meaning of life as much as they're looking for the experience of being alive. What we learned from Campbell and what we leveraged was thinking about the hero's journey. So the hero's journey we see as a tool, and that it's our job to put every person on a hero's journey every day of their life. And the hero's journey, of course, from Joseph Campbell talks about the folklore and this archetype of storytelling and religion that repeats over and over again. We use design thinking and design to attract people. We use it to engage people, to lead to an adoption. And when other people have seen and affirm your adoption and your decision, that turns you into a heroic evangelist. It may change your body language, it might make you feel good about yourself, or you might actually go viral with it. One of the simplest examples I always like to talk about is the Xylus can opener, in which we designed a mundane product like a can opener. And the last count, I think we were just about 9,000 positive reviews on Amazon. By adding ergonomics, aesthetics, and adding a simple mechanism like a click, so that when you puncture the can, it holds the handles together. And now you can think about other things. You don't have to concentrate and focus on holding handles together while you turn a knob. It's simple innovation, but there's also advanced innovation. But if you can, what I will say is that if you can do something like that with a mundane product like a can opener, imagine what you can do with the greater challenges in the world. Another person that we rely on heavily is Dr. Bob Deutsch. He's been a great friend of the firm, but Bob and I aligned over 20 years ago when we worked on the rebirth of the Amana brand. And during that time, Bob and I aligned on psychosthetics, and Bob was instrumental in helping us evolve psychosthetics. For those of you who don't know Bob, I urge you to look him up. He is absolutely one of the most brilliant minds that I've ever met in my lifetime, and somebody who influences everything we do and gives us great insight. So now talking about psychoaesthetics, why is it powerful? What we didn't have in design, what we didn't have in our methodology is a language that we could share. And in the process of building psychoaesthetics and exercising it and conceptualizing it over the past decades, what we found is that it actually is empowering people. And it's providing a new language so that everyone can get involved in design innovation. And as I say, do so with inspiration, insight, and visual thinking. And visual thinking is essential to how we see the world, because it is the visuals that will allow us to gain recall to facts and insights, knowledge that we might not otherwise recall immediately or value. But when we have a visual, it triggers that. At the end of this talk, I'm going to put up a link that gives a methodology book that you use a free download. So psychosthetics has been transformed into a teaching book. We teach it at business schools. It is core curriculum to SCAD, which is the Savannah College of Art and Design. And they use it to teach all of their design students. They're one of the largest design schools in the world, as a basic methodology to understand insight and provide value. So it's a great tool and it's available. It's a free download. What's it all based on? It's all based on understanding people. We've traveled the world. This is never ending. This is a conservative count, 30 countries, 300 expeditions, over 3,000 interviews. The more we interview people, the more we learn about them. We've been to every continent. We've been in rural villages, in people's homes that didn't have electricity or water. We've been to advanced homes. You interview people, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, why that's so valuable in some of the examples. But understanding people is really what it's all about, because this is all really about creating tools to help them. So as I said, we took Maslow's hierarchy and we translated it. And we translated it to was a new map that left Maslow behind, maybe stood on his shoulders. And we said, let's map interactivity and gay self-actualization. In doing that, it created 4 quadrants. We call it basic quadrant, an artistic, and enriched and a versatile quadrant. And as examples, we picked the Mona Lisa paperclip, a skip loader, and a sports car. And so what we say is that if you have low self-actualization and low interactivity, a paperclip is a good example. You pick it up, you use it, you don't think about it, you don't dream about it, it just happens. If you had high levels of interactivity, a skip loader, for a skip loader operator, its eyes, ears, its hands, its feet, it's a tool. And similar to the paperclip, they don't think about the tool, they just operate it. And so it is highly interactive, but not necessarily self-actualizing. On the other side, if we say, what is low interactivity and high self-actualization, the Mona Lisa is a great example. You've got to get to Paris, you've got to get to the Louvre, get a ticket, wait in line, and then go through the museum. And of course, they don't put it in the front of the museum. You've got to walk past, several hundred pieces from masters. Finally, you get to see the Mona Lisa. It's 10 by 12. It's small, it's behind glass, you're behind a rope, there's a guard there. And I saw it probably 40 or more years ago. And I remember like it was yesterday, and it was only 20 seconds of my life. So highly empowering, but no interactivity. And then if we say in the rich quadrant, a sports car is an example of the interactivity of the skip loader and the self-actualization of the Mona Lisa for the first time buyer, perhaps for others. Now, if we look at examples, we could say that there is a cell phone that's a full function cell phone in the lower left by the paperclip, and the latest, and let's say the latest LG, Samsung, or Apple in the upper right. And it's interesting that we forego the full functionality of that phone we can get for free, and now we're spending $1,000 or more on this elaborate, empowering technology. But everything we do is back to people. So even though we create these artifacts and we create this great empowerment, we have to understand it's about people. And this is for phones in North America. Let's say we look at this person. My wife and I went to Africa, and we built bikes with World Bicycle Relief, who's given out, I think, several 100,000 bicycles. This isn't one of them, but they give them out to basically girls in families. And this is a bicycle that lasts 3 years and can carry a whole family. And it's a phenomenal benefit. We built bicycles and donated them. We met this person who delivers coal and hay on his bicycle. We went to his house. He lives in a mud house with straw roof with a corrugated metal door. It's attached by chains. There's no electricity. There's no natural gas to cook on. There's no running water. There's no facilities. Now, designing the latest and greatest iPhone for that person would be irrelevant. It'd be overly expensive and there'd be no value. But getting him this phone creates value. So understanding what's important to him. Now he has his bank account, he has the weather, he has the radio, he's in touch with his friends, and riding his bicycle an hour or two to go charge it wouldn't be a problem at all. Because it's that much, it creates that much value and that much empowerment in their life. So it's important that as designers that we learned that we don't design for ourselves, we have to design for others. And that we're not the person who necessarily is the receiver of our design work, our innovation, our creation. So a great example I always like to share is what we did for Life Technologies. So Life Technologies grew through acquisition, and we were engaged as part of a global branding strategy to rebrand all of their products and develop a global design language. So they came to us with products like this. It's $500,000 in technology. And they said, you know, we need to transform ourselves, that literally to the world, we might look as if we're a distribution company because we have 30 different companies under us and each one has its own visual language, its own branding. So in order to do that, we really needed to understand people. And we assumed, which we throw out very quickly, but we always have our assumptions that everyone would be lower right. But in fact, what we did in interviewing and to create an archetype of a persona, so we use personas, and to create this persona, we interviewed CMOs, chief scientists, and technicians. And by interviewing them and seeing their lifestyle and seeing how they see the world in themselves, we start to map them. This was a great discovery decades ago that you could actually map people and understand where they are. But what it also allowed us to do is to collectively form understandings of where are people going. And what we found is, in this case, that they were thinking about the benefits that DNA sequencing is going to bring to the world. So their technology is DNA sequencing, and they're not thinking about it just strictly as a tool, but they're thinking about how it can increase the life, the longevity, the quality of life for people on this planet, for everyone. And they're really looking for something more significant than just a piece of technology because it is that much more important to them. So developing something that resonates with this market is critical. That creates the opportunity zone, which is always forward-looking. We have to look at what's going to happen tomorrow. So it's very often spoken about the voice of consumer. We do gather voice of consumer, but consumers can only tell us about what they know today. It's our job to forecast and predict what could be tomorrow because that's where we're going to land. So based on that opportunity zone, we then start looking and saying, okay, what else do we have to look at? We look at the aggregate brands of the competitors and we see where are they rated. Now, our client is actually in the lower right, AB Applied Biosystems, part of Life Technologies. Highly interactive, but very low on self-actualization. In the opportunity zone is the #1 competitor, which is Illumina. Illumina's aggregate branding was right in the opportunity zone, and we were looking at how can we rebrand the products. And so we said, now we need to land right in that same opportunity zone. So we transformed all of the product badging and branding into this elegant, simple, actually very low-cost solution, which is a piece of clear plexiglass with silk screened life under it, and then another piece vacuum laminated to it with technologies printed on it, and then white. And what happens is life actually, the word floats in air because of that. So it creates a true drop shadow and it has special meaning to people in DNA sequencing, as DNA somewhat floats in space or in fluid. And so that's how we moved the branding. Next, we looked at, based again on the opportunity zone, how does the product look in comparison to the competitors? What's interesting is that Illumina is in the upper left. It is a beautiful design, but it doesn't necessarily say it's the most high-speed, reliable, state-of-the-art, versatile technology available for $500,000. For some reason, our impression has always been the lower right where Life Technologies brand was and their product landed, that it carried a sensibility of it that it was repurposed technology from the 1980s. And that they took this technology and they translated it and transformed it into something for DNA sequencing. And you just can't shake that impression, although most people don't articulate it, but there's something about it that gives it less relevance to the market. Illumina is beautiful, but it also doesn't necessarily have the true meaning that we're looking for. So how do we get into that opportunity zone? And what we did is translate what you saw into this. It is the same product. The screen has changed and what you see, and there was some software updates, but it is otherwise exactly the same product. So by using the technology, what we're able to do is put together the brand, the people, the product, and create new relevance. And what you see is the before and the exact same product now translated. First product that we launched was the DNA sequencer that does a sequence in 2 hours for $1,000. And this hit the press. It was announced at the Consumer Electronics Show, and it became the phenomenon that people spoke about. Other quick examples are Worlds of Wonder. We developed designed the Teddy Ruxpin, which is one of the most successful toys of all time. Using the methodology and the thinking, we translated the 506 diabetic infusion pump into what you see here is the 507, and that transformed that company from falling out of business to 3 years later being acquired for $3.7 billion on $200 million in sales. We use it to redesign the electric guitar. You see the Rolling Stones and Dave Mason in his Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. We've used it to design smartphones for the blind. And these are some of the examples of the work. So what you see here is the person on the right with the red shirt is the founder of that company. He's been blind at birth. And as he is feeling the different phone designs, he holds up the one that he likes to his ear and looks up or lifts his head as if he's looking at all of us and says to us, "How do I look?" That tells you everything about humanity, that you don't necessarily have eyesight, but you still care how you look to others. You want to feel accepted. We use it to create a fintech company as an incubation to help resolve the student debt crisis, which is currently active. We've used it to help people with osteoporosis and through auto injectors for pharma. What you see is the designer on the left wearing goggles with cellophane on it and gloves and ear protection, trying to emulate someone in their 80s or 90s who has osteoporosis. And then testing with people over and over again. So now we come to COVID. This is where I see COVID and where I saw our lives just a few months ago. We could celebrate. We enjoyed everyone's company. We had a great quality of life for most of us. If you only got together with another friend, you still enjoyed it, but you could get together with groups, and there's something that's in our DNA about culture and community that we can't escape. Went from there to being isolated. And the isolation is incredibly difficult. And that takes us all the way lower left. So we went from highly self-actualized and immersive opportunities and engagements to survival mode. We're alone, we're struggling, and then we start to interject technology. And along with the technology comes some relevance. I mean, we're doing this today through technology, but it doesn't move you all the way up or right. It moves you in that direction, and it gives you something back. We don't know how long-lived it'll be, and we don't know how tired people are becoming of seeing each other on screen as opposed to hugging and talking in person. But technology has helped during the crisis. And now we're starting to see people come together again. All right, with masks and with social distancing, but wearing masks and protecting one another. But we're still not up or right. With time, we'll tell how we move. So this is how I see the world through COVID-19. And the challenge is that if we can transform people who wouldn't use a diabetic infusion pump, even though it could help their quality of life and save their life, and eliminate many of the side effects of diabetes, and motivate them through design and experience into something more relevant. In this case, we wore the pagers, we wore the device for 4 days, 24 hours a day, pumping saline as if we were diabetics. And we learned that there was a stigma. We resolved that at that time by making it look like it was a pager. In the case of this technology, we're able to transform it into something that gave meaning and value to the scientists and created the future of medical science visually that resonated. So the question is, what are we going to do? We're here today. I believe we can, through understanding people, using our insights into people, start to develop technologies, start to develop what you're seeing today is you're seeing personalization of masks. You're starting to see people design masks that are more interesting, that are more empowering. Masks are going to be a way of life, I think, going forward, because this may only be the first pandemic that we see. The question is that, will we ever get back to where we were? It may take a year, it may take 5 years, it may take 10 years. But in the process, there is a way to solve the problem, but it's not an immediate answer. It is something that is going to evolve, and it's something that the psychosocial tools can help in everything we do, because as we map people and now we know where we have to go, there's something about the human mind that it does start to take direction. As I think George Harrison said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. If you know where you have to go, the tools are there, the ingenuity is there, and we're applying it in everything we do now as we approach people to really understand the changes in the mindset, that how do people feel next to each other, and how is everything changing? How we address products that are sold online, how we address digital interaction, and how we value those moments that we spend together. They may be fewer, but they'll be that much more valuable. And with that, if you'd like to learn more, I do have some publications. Predictable Magic is a business book that's been out about a decade now. There's a Harvard exercise that's taught in business schools throughout the world on psychosthetics. There's an exercise, or there's a Harvard case study on RKS guitars, how we use psychosthetics to reinvent the electric guitar. And then, of course, is the free download. So hopefully we can leave that up on screen during the Q&A. You can also reach out to me through LinkedIn or through my email. But I hope I was able to give some insight into a tool that can help us deal with this crisis, how we can learn from it, and how we're going to have to adjust to it, and how it's changing our world. With that, so we go to Q&A.
Well, thank you, Ravi, and let's open it up for Q&A. I'm sure we're going to have some questions, but in the meanwhile, I'd like to ask you personally how you and your team are coping with the lockdown currently. I imagine design to be a very interactive, creative process that requires almost the company of others. And here you are by yourself in the office. How does that work?
It's interesting. It's not working perfectly. It's working better than we had anticipated it would work. People are enjoying working from home. They are collaborating. We've added some collaborative tools such as digital sketching and things. And then in Ventura County, we're allowed to have up to 10 people, social distancing. So there are meetings that happen in the conference room, large conference room tables, and people basically 6 or more feet away from each other. But yeah, it's a different world. It's a different world, and it makes it that much more difficult because body language is so much of our communication, and seeing it on screen and seeing it in person is something different. And the nuances, the true nuances of design and innovation and understanding come from people misspeaking and speaking and interacting on a different level. So we've overcome it to a degree. I'm sure that if we had to do it this way for months into years, that it would create one compromise after another. But right now we're able to overcome it.
Fantastic. Are you already seeing that your clients are looking for different things now in this situation or preparing for the time after the pandemic?
Our clients have been looking and speaking and having us address the transformation of the shopping experience for some time now. And so in many ways, the solutions have become much more digital, and we need to address those. So we've been addressing that, but ultimately, all of our clients know that while the sale occurs digitally, the moment of truth happens in person. And so our clients, it's been very interesting. Very few of our clients have actually pulled back. Most people are pushing forward, kind of pressing on the gas pedal and saying, this will be over someday, and we don't want to be left out. We want to keep pushing forward, innovating, understanding the market, and addressing the market, and creating new innovations and solutions for people. So it's kind of interesting. I suppose it was a catalyst and an accelerator to what was already happening, which is that you have to address the sale. In that first part of the attraction of the hero's journey online. It's not as if you're going to be walking through retail and something's going to catch your eye. It's got to catch your eye, and you're going to investigate it. And understand that also people go much deeper. They read reviews, they do things differently now.
Mm-hmm. We have a few questions coming in, Ravi. I'd like to go to the first one that may just clarify the breadth of what you do. Do you apply your concept of psychoaesthetics to help service providers like attorneys, financial services companies also, or is it just for physical products?
No, we do quite a few digital products, and we incubated our own fintech company, as you said, about that's helping people with student debt. So much of the work now is transformative. So we use it for branding. We have a full digital team that does coding. So we have quite a few software solutions, whether in finance, but the methodology and the insighting and the mapping is very helpful. And we have applied them in legal cases to help judges and juries understand how the world is seen. And we've used it pretty much in every case. We've used it for interiors, we've used it for branding, we've used it for messaging, for to understand really what the voice and message is of a company. We haven't found a limitation for it. I think it's one of the most unlikely discoveries of my career was to discover this methodology that you could translate. You could translate Maslow's hierarchy, Campbell's thinking, and people like Bob Deutsch's thinking into relevance and meaning. I have to say it's kind of been never ending.
There are quite a few questions around psychoaesthetics. The simplest one is probably, why do you call it psychoaesthetics?
Originally, that's a new question. Originally, I was putting together the terms about the psychology of aesthetics, and I was trying to create terms that resonated with the underpinning of the firm. Was that it's not how you feel about the designer experience; it's how it makes you feel about yourself. And in the process, I wrote a short piece about and called it Psychoaesthetics, talking about kind of the psyche and psychology involved in design, kind of harking back to my roots at Xerox, where you use design as a tool to motivate people to do something new. And then the name just kind of stuck. You can be a psycho, but this is psychoaesthetics. It's not about being a psycho.
The Drury asks a question about also the psychoaesthetics map. Can it be used in early discovery phases of the design process? Especially when you're faced with a universe of options, can you use it to narrow it down?
Yeah, it's interesting. We use it to narrow down the options, but it can be used at all levels. It can be used on a very superficial level without any depth or understanding, just a pure gut level of where you think things are. And then it becomes a talking tool for others to collaborate, discuss, debate. And then you can always go deeper and deeper through studying. But it's not a perfect roadmap. But as I said, if you start with a roadmap and you start to visualize it and put it in sense of this, it'll start to make sense that much earlier. So we use it right out of the bat. I mean, we use it. It's kind of our secret seasoning. We just apply it to everything. And it never fails us because it is something that we could all look at and talk about and debate. It stimulates the conversation. It triggers recall of tacit knowledge, even within the team members, just by visualizing it and putting it down and seeing where people fall. It's definitely worth a try. It's such an easy tool to use, and it's so powerful.
Carl from Austria would like to know if there is actually a difference between psychoaesthetics and the classical or traditional user experience design.
Well, psychoaesthetics is in the book Psychoaesthetics. You'll see it really encompasses all of the tools that are traditional. The mapping and the use of the hero's journey as we actually map out the journey is unique, and there's some other unique tools, but it's an all-encompassing tool. So I would never say that it's either or. We use it in combination with every tool you can imagine in traditional research, excuse me, traditional design thinking. It's really an open platform. So yeah, it's not an either or. So I could do a comparison, but actually, if you take the download, you'll see that it really pulls everything that we could together into one methodology and translate it into to something that's easily learnable, that's usable. I think the PA map is especially valuable because as you go through the process, it visualizes and helps guide you.
Great. So Alan asks an important question about the opportunity zone, especially, I guess, with reference to the current situation, right? So do we just sit things out and see where the chips fall in the future, waiting for some sense of normalcy and returning to where we used to be, or do we attack things proactively and make them happen and move them towards the opportunity zone?
Well, I'm sure we're going to be proactive, and you could say proactive, or you could say responsive. People are going to find a way to fill that emotional void, the need to be close to family, to be close to friends, to be in the community of others, and you know, the methods, the exact solutions are starting to evolve. You know, it's impossible for me to imagine that people are going to sit back and just wait for the chips to fall where they may. It's too much part of our DNA. It's too much part of our life. It's too much who we are. So things are moving. Things are moving in the direction. Of course, first thing is to resolve the safety issue. But even going out into public, I don't know if things will ever go back to normal, but I think I might be wearing, you know, a very, very cool mask in the future. And it'll become a fashion statement. And, you know, I assume you'll see pop-up kiosks like you do with sunglasses, and you'll see a whole variety and selection of personalization of the actual masks that you wear. I mean, that's an inevitability, you know, and we've seen that in other communities, you know, that people will wear masks if they have a cold, or they think they're getting the sniffles, or they have a flu. I think it's going to be a way of life for us, but I can imagine some of these masks are going to be some of the most incredible masks you've ever seen, and you know, things are going to change. The design of of office space is going to change. People are going to be further away from each other. People will work from home more often. You know, there may be an incredible fallout to the environment as people now learn to work from home. So yeah, things are changing, and the technology is changing, and people are evolving. People change by evolution or revolution. I think this is a change that's happening more by revolution.
Right. What you just brought up, that people are going to work more from home, actually relates to another question by Maria. How do you see home design changing? And maybe we can also extend that to office design.
Well, you know, there has been a trend, but it's again, this is a huge accelerator for the home, because you know, people will definitely stop traveling more. They'll definitely have been, and will even more so now, stay at home more now than ever before. So that means redesigning your interior, remodeling your interior, personalizing your interior, even to the point of where if you're, you know, living in a rental home, that you still want to personalize it and make it your nest and make it your sanctuary. And that trend has been coming for a long time, but this is a tremendous accelerator, along with the advent of the home office, where people have a space to work from home and not come into the office. You know, it's interesting because open office has been so popular and it started to now slide a little bit backwards to where some people aren't collaborating as much as they used to, or they thought they would. And so it'll be hybrids of closed offices and open offices, but open office will be more for, I think, community gathering and you'll still be keeping your distance. So it's going to be interesting. If you take a space like we have, 6,000 square feet upstairs is a suite that we don't use, but that space could have held 30 people. So today it might hold 20 people or 15 people, and 15 people may be working at home and swapping out because it'll be further apart. So right. It's yeah.
Robbie, I think we have time for one more question. I'd like to give that question to Jerry Knotts, who is an old acquaintance of yours, I understand. He asks about whether you have teamed up with other organizations to work on the current transition problem. Not so sure what he exactly refers to, but maybe you have a better understanding.
You know, we haven't designed any programs and jumped into any programs for the transition. We've made our 3D printing technology available for printing parts for ventilators. But what caught us by surprise is that we don't actually have a huge amount of downtime with people moving forward and charging forward in their own categories of product or technology or software. So on an individual case, I could say we're teaming up with all our clients and addressing the transformation of society post-COVID, but there haven't been programs that have come forward and said, let's address this. Now I'm sure there will be in the upcoming months, but right now, from what I see, you basically have two situations where people are working on just stabilizing and creating a safer environment and helping as many people as they can, and then people who are more looking far out into the future about what they can do and how they have to address the change in their own solutions for people.
Well, Ravi, this was fascinating. Of course, we never have enough time. I could talk to you for hours and hours, and I could listen to you for even longer. But
Thank you.
This is a lunchtime webinar, so we're going to end it right here. People have your email and LinkedIn information so they can reach out to you. I wish you and your team all the best, and all of us, I wish that we will come out of the lockdown soon and with your help, have a more beautifully designed world.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you also to everybody who tuned in today to the Forward Together webinar series. Our next event in the series is coming up on May 27th, and we're going to speak to somebody who is at the forefront in many different ways of the current COVID-19 crisis. Richard Moreau, he is the Chief Government Relations Officer and head of the Washington, D.C. office of the Emergency Nurses Association, and he's going to speak about the federal legislative response to COVID-19, public policies to assist frontline healthcare providers. So please join us for the next one on May 27th, and thank you very much for being with us today. And thank you, Robbie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We thank you for participating in today's Forward Together webinar series, brought to you by the School of Management at California Lutheran University. The School of Management offers a broad range of programs and community services. Whether you're looking to upgrade your career, locate current economic data from our Center for Economic Research and Forecasting, or a place to start and grow your business at Hub 101, our community startup space, we invite you to visit us at clu.edu/SOM and join the community as we move forward together.